The Philippine Coast Guard now deployed two of its biggest vessels in the West Philippine Sea. The 97-meter Teresa Magbanua, the PCG's most modern vessels, has been stationed at Escoda since April in response to the presence of Chinese maritime militias and suspected Chinese reclamation activities in the area. While BRP Melchora Aquino, Philippine Coast Guard flagship vessels completed its 2 days maritime patrol, 20 to 25 nautical miles east of the Scarborough Shoal, around 120 nautical miles of the Philippine Island of Lozon, well within the 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone of Manila. While patrolling in the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone, BRP Melchora Aquino was closely shadowed by the 110-meter Chinese Coast Guard vessel. Meanwhile, China's monster ship and Philippines Coast Guard largest vessels Teresa Magbanua is still currently in standoff, as both ships dropped its anchor in Escoda Shoal in the Spratly Island group, about 80 miles northwest of the Philippine nearest island of Palawan since the first week of July. The deployment of the largest Coast Guard vessels of the Philippines and China at West Philippine Sea underscores the heightening maritime conflict between the two countries. Despite talks pledging to de-escalate tensions in the contested water in the West Philippine Sea, Beijing and Manila continue to exchange rhetorical fire. China calls on the Philippine government to withdraw its ship anchored in Escoda Shoal. China urged the Philippines to immediately remove what they call as the illegally grounded vessels in the waters of Escoda, as claimed by Beijing as part of China's Nansha Islands, a Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman said.
中方对包括鲜滨礁在内的南沙群岛拥有无可争辩的主权。中方维权执法行动正当合理，菲方有关行径严重侵犯中方主权，公然违反南海各方行为宣言，特别是第5条规定，在南海制造新的紧张因素，进一步破坏地区和平稳定。我们敦促菲方立即撤走人员船只，不要在错误的道路上越走越远。
In response, the Philippines send a strong message to China that the Philippine Coast Guard will not order the Teresa Magbanua to return to Palawan to maintain Manila's presence in the area.
Regardless how many China Coast Guard vessels that they deployed there, regardless whether it's a PLA Navy vessel, ang Philippine Coast Guard will not be intimidated. We're not going to pull back and direct Teresa Magbanua to go back to Palawan. With the clear guidance of our President and the intention of the Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard to maintain our presence in Escoda Shoal, we're not going to pull out and we're not going to be intimidated.
Lessons learned from Manila not to trust Beijing when the country lost control over Scarborough Shoal to China, after the Philippine Navy left the shoal following a 2-month standoff in 2012, with the understanding that the Chinese vessels would also leave Scarborough Shoal. In a powerful display of international solidarity, the United States, Japan, Australia and several other nations have vehemently condemned China's aggressive actions in the West Philippine Sea, sending a clear message that violations of international law will not be tolerated. Amidst growing tensions in the region, the Philippines has found itself at the center of a global outcry against China's provocative behavior, highlighting the solidarity and support of the international community. Now China is acting like a victim of bullying. In a statement of President Xi Jinping, during the World Economic Forum in response to the countermeasures of the United States, European Union, and other allied nations, to sanction Chinese companies, as well as product manufactured by sanctioned Chinese companies.
Multilateral institutions, which provide the platforms for putting multilateralism into action, and which are the basic architecture underpinning multilateralism, should have their authority and effectiveness safeguarded. State-to-state relations should be coordinated and regulated through proper institutions and rules. The strong should not bully the weak. Decisions should not be made by simply showing off strong muscles or waving a big fist. Multilateralism should not be used as pretext for acts of unilateralism. Principles should be preserved, and rules once made should be followed by all.
In a statement issued by spokesperson of Chinese Foreign Minister, no country is superior to another. No one has the right to bully others. Any country who thinks it can bully others from a position of strength will be acting against the trend of the times and rejected by the international community. Hypocrisy. Thy name is China. China considers itself superior to other countries, tries to bully all of its neighbors into submission. Beijing thinks it can bully others from a position of strength with complete disregard to the trend of the times and is being comprehensively rejected by the international community. By any measure, the world fails to see how China deserves to play the victim card of being bullied. They hold the position of the second largest economy and second most powerful military in the world. The majority of small economies around the globe tread carefully when dealing with China's unlawful activities and provocative behavior, as China often resorts to economic coercion to gain support. China asserts their dominance in the region by flexing their muscles through the deployment of the PLA Navy, China Coast Guard, and Chinese maritime militia. Therefore, it can be inferred that they are specifically accusing only one country, the United States, of bullying them. This narrative allows them to seek sympathy from other countries that support them. They aim to counter Washington's criticism of their unlawful actions and unfair economic practices, portraying them as a form of bullying in an attempt to deceive the international community. China should reflect on his own actions and consider the consequences. China's statements contradict with their actions in the West Philippine Sea. They've been flexing their military muscles in Philippines' exclusive economic zones. Hence, the world doesn't get the point for China to play the victim card, when the whole world can literally see their actions in the West Philippine Sea. The portrayal of the Philippines as the provocateur is a smokescreen designed to justify China's 10-dash line. The escalation of tension in the West Philippine Sea is a direct result of China's justification for its 10-dash line claim and provocative actions. China's deployment of amphibious assault ships and the implementation of new restrictive measures by the China Coast Guard are clear indicators of its expansionist agenda. These actions are not about safeguarding territorial sovereignty but about establishing control and dominance over strategic maritime regions. China's repeated claims of legitimate activities in the South China Sea ignore the rights and sovereignty of its neighbors. The presence of Chinese military vessels in these contested waters is a form of maritime bullying, aimed at coercing smaller nations into submission. The international community must recognize these actions for what they are: aggressive moves that undermine regional stability and violate international law. China's narrative of being a victim of provocations is a strategic misrepresentation designed to garner sympathy and deflect criticism. The true provocateur in the South China Sea is China itself, with its illegal, coercive, aggressive, deceptive activities and continuous efforts to disrupt the legitimate activities of its neighbors. It is imperative that the world sees through this facade and holds China accountable for its actions. China's actions in the South China Sea have consistently undermined regional stability and international law. The Philippines' efforts to assert its sovereign rights are met with military intimidation and disinformation campaigns. The Philippines has shown remarkable restraint and commitment to peace despite these provocations. Philippines personnel, stationed on the BRP Sierra Madre, are defending their territory, not provoking conflict. The false narrative propagated by China that the Philippines is the aggressor is a classic case of the thief crying "Stop thief." International law and regional stability hinge on the adherence to established legal frameworks. The Philippines, supported by the 2016 arbitral ruling, is upholding these principles, while China's actions represent a severe threat to the rule-based international order. The international community must recognize and support the Philippines' legitimate efforts to protect its sovereignty and maritime rights. China's aggressive maneuvers and disregard for international law cannot be overlooked. The Philippines, in defending Escoda Shoal, is not only safeguarding its own sovereignty but also upholding the principles of international law that ensure peace and stability in the region. The West Philippine Sea, an area of great dispute between the Philippines and China, has become a battleground for territorial claims. While China insists on its ownership over this region, the truth remains crystal clear. The West Philippine Sea belongs to the Philippines, and the Chinese need to open their eyes wider to see this undeniable fact. The historical evidence overwhelmingly supports the Philippines' claim to the West Philippine Sea. Throughout the centuries, this area has been an integral part of Philippine territory, recognized by the international community. However, it seems that the Chinese have conveniently forgotten this, blinded by their misplaced sense of entitlement. Moreover, international laws, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, also unequivocally back the Philippines' claim. The West Philippine Sea falls well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, giving the country every right to manage and exploit its resources. It's a shame that the Chinese seem to have overlooked these crucial legal boundaries in favor of their own delusions of grandeur. The Chinese government's audacious actions in the West Philippine Sea further highlight their arrogance and ignorance. They have resorted to intimidation tactics, bullying Filipino fishermen and restricting access to traditional fishing grounds. Their flimsy justifications for these blatant violations of international law showcase not only their skewed perspective but also their sheer inability to comprehend basic concepts of sovereignty. Perhaps it's time for the Chinese to wake up from their self-imposed stupor and recognize that they do not hold the keys to the West Philippine Sea. Their myopic vision prevents them from seeing the reality of the situation, that the Philippines rightfully owns this territory. Maybe if they expanded their narrow gaze, they would realize that their greedy ambitions have no place in waters that rightfully belong to another. The recent incident at Escoda Shoal, where a Philippine resupply mission was met with interference and aggression from Chinese forces, served as a catalyst for a united front against China's actions in the West Philippine Sea. Leading the charge, the United States issued a resolute condemnation of China's behavior, emphasizing the importance of upholding international law, respecting sovereignty, and ensuring freedom of navigation in the region. This sentiment was echoed by Japan, Australia, and members of the European Union, who stood in solidarity with the Philippines and called for accountability and justice in the face of China's provocations. The outpouring of support from these nations has transformed the Philippines from a small country into a formidable force on the world stage, demonstrating the transformative impact of global solidarity in the face of adversity. The unity of purpose displayed by the international community underscores the shared commitment to defending the rights and freedoms of all nations. The solidarity and support extended to the Philippines by the international community not only serve as a shield against aggression but also as a source of inspiration and empowerment for nations around the world facing similar challenges. The collective condemnation of China's actions in the West Philippine Sea underscores the universal values of sovereignty, rule of law, and peaceful resolution of disputes. Reminding all nations that no matter their size, they have the right to stand up for their rights and defend their territorial integrity. Through this united front, small nations find strength in unity and solidarity, reshaping the global landscape and reinforcing the principle that every nation, no matter its size, has a voice that deserves to be heard and respected in the pursuit of justice and security. Furthermore, the solidarity shown towards the Philippines by the United States and other nations highlights the interconnectedness of the global community in promoting peace, stability, and respect for international law. By standing together in defense of the rules-based international order, these countries not only protect the interests of individual nations but also uphold the broader principles of justice, equality, and mutual respect among nations. The support provided to the Philippines underscores the importance of collective action in addressing transgressions and upholding the rights of all nations, irrespective of their size or influence. In a world marked by complex challenges and shifting power dynamics, the unified front demonstrated in support of the Philippines exemplifies the strength that comes from shared commitments to uphold the values of freedom, democracy, and respect for sovereignty. The world must stand with the Philippines against these unlawful actions and support the rule of law in the South China Sea. In conclusion, the West Philippine Sea is without a shadow of a doubt, this is a Philippine territory. The Chinese need to ditch their antiquated mindset, open their eyes wider, and acknowledge this truth. Until then, their futile attempts to stake a claim in these waters will continue to be met with a mocking chorus, that the West Philippine Sea is for the Philippines, not for China.